The Undisputed Wrestling Show is now. I am the bearded wonder, Zane Paisley. Joining me is Kevin Sullivan's favorite referee. Out of the Pacific Northwest, we have Sign Guy. Sign Guy, how are you this evening?
Not too bad this evening, Zane.
Well, what's been going on in your life?
Well, the vending machine in my apartment building is finally repaired, so if I needed a double espresso at 2 a.m., I could go downstairs and get it now. It's been a month.
Well, that's excellent. You always need a double espresso at 2 a.m.
Sometimes you do.
That would be, 5 a.m. my time?
Yes, it would.
So next time I need a double espresso at 5 a.m., need to hop on a flight, get out to your town, and then get one from your vending machine.
That seems really reasonable, actually.
Okay, sounds good. Well, the Undisputed Wrestling Show is proudly presented by the Angry Marks Podcast Network. Check us out at AngryMarks.com/podcast. Go to your iTunes or your Double Pod app and download the podcast app and keyword Angry Marks, all one word. Hit the subscribe button. Get great Angry Marks podcasts delivered to your phone or however you listen to it every day. Some great shows on there, including the Undisputed Wrestling Show. You can also check us out at www.theundisputedwrestlingshow.weebly.com. You can check out all of our past episodes and check out who's coming up. Like next week, we've got the awesome, the great Cheyenne will be joining us. And tonight we will have the great Caleb Stills will be joining us later this hour. So really looking forward to talking with Caleb. So, Sign Guy, first things first. On last week's episode, I did predict that Raw would have its lowest rating ever. And I'm also still predicting that SmackDown will beat Raw in the ratings this week. Last night was the first presidential debate between Mr. Donald J. Trump and former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton. They had over 80 million people viewing that debate. Raw scored a little under 2.5 million people, so it was their lowest rated show in history. Were you surprised at all about that?
Not overly surprised, except I remember that Fez awful episode from South Africa. It seemed to go on for hours, so I'm surprised it beat that, because I think that was their lowest point, the episode in the mid-90s from South Africa that was over a week old.
Was that where Honky Tonk Man and Jim Cornette were doing commentary?
Yeah, I believe that is. Ahmed Johnson had a big part in that show, and they had to translate or something like that for him because they couldn't understand Ahmed in South Africa, apparently.
Did you know that I was on that episode?
I did not.
They had taped the previous week in Muncie, Indiana, and I was holding an Austin 316 sign. And so they, on that South Africa episode, they showed part of what was going on in Muncie the previous week. And so you see me on that. There's a split screen where it says, United States, and the other side of the screen said South Africa, and I'm on the United States side of that.
That was something I did not know.
Well, now you know. So go back and watch that on the network. I believe it's from April of '97, and you will see me holding. I'm wearing a Reservoir Dogs T-shirt. This is before I was the Bearded Wonder. I was the Clean Shaven Wonder at that time, and I was wearing a Reservoir Dogs shirt and I believe a Larry Bird's Boston Connection hat, and I'm holding a white sign with red letters that say Austin 316.
I will look for that, because that sounds fascinating. Now, when you're there in Muncie, were you thinking to yourself, I bet next week, when they're from South Africa, I'll be featured on the program?
I wasn't thinking that specifically, but I had some inclination, because that was the debut of the Truth Commission, and they were talking about South Africa.
Well, that makes sense. I thought the South African Truth Commission vastly underrated. They just had a gold mine there, and they just let it slip away. Look how big Colonel De Beers got.
Yeah, but that wasn't Colonel De Beers.
Well, I know, but he was a South African guy, and they had a similar type of gimmick, but then once the Truth Commission started to get a little bit of momentum, they just yanked it away.
No? Well, okay. All right. I am actually sending you the photo right now on Facebook of me on the split screen. So we've got a few minutes before we're talking with Caleb Stills. Biggest news in wrestling right now, other than the Raw rating, is that TNA desperately needs cash injection to be able to put together Bound for Glory and then TV tapings next week. I don't know what's going on with Billy Corgan. I'd heard that he was possibly buying into the company, but now rumors are that WWE still has a stake out there for it. What do you know, and what are your thoughts, Sign Guy?
Well, I'm not in their office, so I can't say I know anything firsthand, of course. I don't really put a lot of stock into the internet rumors at this point because I saw an interview with Billy Corgan that ESPN put out just yesterday where he talked about 80% of his day was spent structuring TNA and working in that office and producing the shows. They have just recently signed a couple of bigger names to the company. If they were in that dire straits, I don't think they would tack on that much contracted obligations. So I think it's just the rumors that have been going around since TNA started about how they're on the verge of collapse and the end is near. It's been going on for 14 years.
Well, I sincerely do not want them to fail. I want there to be other organizations out there to give guys and women to places to work and have more product out there. And you know, I would say on the Undisputed Wrestling Show, we didn't talk too much about TNA for a very long time, other than rumors of their demise. But lately, we've talked a lot about the Hardy brothers, Broken Matt Hardy and Brother Nero. You know, their resurgence there and the creative resurgence that's been going on in TNA. So I wish some luck. But also, I did talk with a current TNA star a few months backstage at a show, and he said he really did not know what was going on with their contracts, and he just signed another contract with them. He just said that he hopes that they were able to pay it. So I think that the men and women there are also questioning everything. You know, I don't know if they should believe the internet hype, but also if it's your money on the line, maybe you need to look at other things. So who knows with that. We've got a few minutes before we talk with Caleb Stills. Do we want to do some Bound for Glory predictions, Sign Guy?
That sounds tremendous.
Awesome. Hit me with it.
All right. First match we have for Bound for Glory on Sunday, champion of the X Division, DJZ, versus to-be-announced challenger.
I doubt that it'll be Cody Rhodes as the challenger. My prediction for the challenger will be Manic. I've heard really good things about him. But I'm going to say DJZ gets the nod there.
I'm going to predict as the challenger Adam Everett, and I will say that DJZ retains.
All right. Killer Kev, producer extraordinaire, do you have any predictions for that match?
I don't know. I don't know how you can base a prediction based on you don't know who the opponent is yet.
Well, do you have any predictions on who the opponent will be?
No. I haven't been following TNA at all, so I have no idea who's in the promotion or who it might even remotely be.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to the next match, Stein Guy.
Next match is the 10-man Bound for Gold gauntlet match, where the winner can choose any championship match of their choice should they win this. It is Tyrus versus Robbie E. versus Baron Dax versus Jesse Goddard versus Grado versus Rockstar Spud versus 4 other opponents to be announced.
All right, is Cody Rhodes on the card at all?
He is not formally listed.
Okay, I'm going to guess that Cody Rhodes will win this match.
I'm going to predict Jesse Goddard just because they've been hyping him up on commentary quite a bit recently.
Okay, all right, that's as good as anybody. I leave it to TNA, and I, as I said, I want them to do well. I want them to be able to provide jobs for the men and women there. But there's the first two matches that you list off on their biggest pay-per-view of the year, and 5 of the participants aren't even announced yet. So
you know what? I'll go with a prediction on this one. Grado, just because I know he pisses off so many people.
Yeah, that's not a bad one. All right, Sign Guy, hit us with the next Bound for Glory match.
Next one is for the TNA Knockouts Championship. The champion Maria Kanellis Bennett versus Gail Kim.
Does Maria still have a bum wing?
She still wears the brace on her wrist, yes.
Okay. They're putting Gail Kim into their Hall of Fame at this event, or maybe the night before. So I'm going to go with Gail Kim.
I also think it'll be Gail Kim just because they've built the story around her for the last 2 months and made it seem like she would not get the title shot. They put her in at the last minute after they stripped Maria Kanellis Bennett of her power and matchmaking decisions. I think her assistant, Allie, will do something to cause the defeat, which will then spark a full-time in-ring presence of Allie.
Okay. Allie I like. She used to compete as Cherry Bomb on the independent circuit. She's good, so.
She is good, and she has to... I was just going to say real quick, she's good, and what you can really use as an indicator, she has to sell that she has no idea what she's doing because of the angle.
Yeah. Yep. You got any predictions on that, Kev?
I'll go with Gail Kim as well, so.
Okay.
And the main reason I say that is with the current situation within TNA, I'm not entirely confident that Maria is going to be around that much longer anyway. You know, if the financial situation is as dire as what's being rumored, then, you know, there's no point in them sticking around on a sinking ship.
Okay. All right, well, what's the next match?
Next match is a singles match, a grudge match between Moose and Mike Bennett.
Ooh. I haven't been impressed with how they've booked Moose yet. So I'm hoping that once Corgan is able to take a little more control, we'll be able to do more with that. Mike Bennett's a talented guy also, so this is a really tough one. I'm going to say that Bennett's going to go over on this one, but both men are going to look real good.
I think Moose will get it. I think that Moose will end up in a title picture immediately following this, so I think this is just a way to establish him in the title picture.
Okay. You got any predictions, Kev?
I'll go with Moose, although I was tempted to go with no contest.
Yeah.
Double count out. You know, competitors can't compete anymore.
Yep. That seems to be a trend lately.
But I'll actually make a pick. We'll do Moose.
Okay.
Next match is for the brand new Impact Grand Championship. Aaron Rex versus Drew Galloway.
Sign Guy, can you let our listeners and possibly Killer Kev know the stipulations for the Grand Championship?
Sure. The Grand Championship is a brand new title. They do 3 3-minute rounds. You can win the match at any point during the 3 rounds by pinfall or submission. There are judges at ringside if it goes through the 3 rounds. It is a 10-point must system. The criteria is physicality, controlling the match, and I believe also it is physicality, controlling the match, and aggressiveness.
But you can win by pinfall or disqualification. But if it goes to the final of the 3 rounds, then it's the judge's decision.
Correct. And they do announce the individual rounds winner as they go.
I gotta think that they're gonna put it on Drew Galloway's, but I'm not 100%. This is another one that it's a real toss-up. I'm gonna say Galloway.
I'm good with Galloway.
I also think Galloway is going to win it because just the way they've been talking on commentary, it seems like he's going to be a centerpiece of this particular division. So I think they're going to at least initially run with him.
Yeah, I don't see Aaron Rex, the former Damian Sandow, being aggressive, and you'd mentioned that a few times in their scoring system. So, yeah, let's go with Galloway.
The next match, it is a Falls Count Anywhere, no holds barred war for the TNA World Tag Team Championship. Champions Decay defending against the Broken Hardys.
Decay, I knew you'd come. I'm going to go with Broken Matt and Brother Nero. I think that they're the hottest thing in TNA. They might be the hottest thing in wrestling right now. So I got to go with them.
I also think that the Broken Hardys will win it. I think it'll morph more into a 6-person tag with Rosemary and Rebecca being heavily involved. I can see it starting in the ring and then sort of evolving into a final deletion style thing where they have a lot of pre-tape stuff that they do in the backstage area, maybe even in different parts of the complex. But I think the Hardys ultimately will win this and win the war, which was initially a premonition as young Maxwell played the theme for Broken Matt Hardy on his piano.
Kev, what's your prediction?
Sounds reasonable to me. Broken Hardys.
Okay.
Final match, the main event, singles match for the TNA World Championship. We do not know the stipulation of that match until after Impact this week. Whoever wins the lockdown cage match will win the right to name the stipulation, but it will be the champion Lashley versus the challenger Ethan Carter III.
So who's fighting in the cage match?
Lashley will have a team of 3 people versus Ethan Carter's team. I don't think that they formally announced the teams, but it's the lockdown cage match, which is basically their version of a War Games.
Oh, okay, all right. I can dig that. I'm going to say EC3. He's their best face, and Lashley's been dominating for a long time, so this will reset it. I think that EC3 will take the championship.
I think Lashley retains just because they've made him out to be such a dominant force. I think they're going to run with Lashley long term.
Okay. All right. What about you, Kev?
I'm also going to predict EC3 going into the new future of the company. I think they need a strong babyface with the title on them, and that's the way to go.
Awesome. Well, I hope that they get the pay-per-view off the ground, and hopefully they'll be able to run it, and it'll be a great card. So, all right. Well, do we want to give our guest a call? Hello, is this Caleb Stills?
This is him.
Well, let me give you a nice formal introduction. I'm Zane Paisley. I'm the Bearded Wonder Zane Paisley. Also on the line with us, we've got Kevin Sullivan's favorite referee out of the Pacific Northwest. We've got Sign Guy. But now on the Undisputed Wrestling Show, we have out of Detroit, Michigan, Caleb Stills. Caleb, how are you this evening?
Well, thank you. I'm pretty good. After an introduction like that, I don't know if I can live up to the hype.
I
think you gave me a little too much praise there. No, I'm just kidding. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing just fantastic. We want to thank you for coming on the show. It seems like we've had a string of Detroit wrestlers on. A couple weeks ago, we had Amazing Nate Matson. Last week we had the Curious Movado, and now we have you, Mr. Caleb Stills. So two things that I noticed from Movado and Mattson. Detroit guys, both into punk rock. Are you into punk rock?
Not as much as they are. I actually, growing up in the business, I started around the same time as Movado, so I got to see all the different bands that he was in, and I dug that. But yeah, I'm not totally into the punk rock native.
Well, tell us before you tell us about training or anything like that. Tell us about how you got interested in the crazy world of professional wrestling.
I don't even know where to start with that. Well, I know for the first time I was 5 years old. My grandpa sat me in front of the TV, and when he turned it on, that's what was playing. It was WWF Superstars. And I remember the first thing I ever saw was a Honky Tonk Man cutting a promo. And after that, I was hooked. I guess that's weird to be hooked by Honky Tonk Man, but I always loved weird, outlandish characters, way over the top. So
who were your favorites other than Honky Tonk growing up? That era had, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant. Who were some of the big guys that you looked up to?
Well, definitely Andre the Giant. My favorite movie as a kid was Princess Bride. So I annoyed everyone in my family walking around going, anybody want a peanut? So, yeah, I would say Andre, loved Steamboat, big fan of Dusty Rhodes. Like I said, the more outlandish, the better. I just thought I dug the whole larger-than-life concept from wrestling.
Now, up in that area, did you get AWA or any of the Canadian promotions like Stampede or anything like that?
No, not really. Growing up, all we had the NWA, and that was right around the time it was switching to WCW. So I saw that a few times, but most of the time we didn't have cable, and that was, on TBS? So I never really got that. So I was basically a WWF kid. I grew up during Hulkamania and falling into the Attitude Era with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Triple H and all those guys. And it just, growing up during that, it just blew your mind because you never knew where they were going to set the line and then jump over it to next week on Raw.
So age of 5, when was when you started watching wrestling with your grandpa, watching the Honky Tonk Man?
Yep.
When did you get started in training, and what made you go from wanting to be a fan to a wrestler?
Well, I would say that happened around age 13. I got back into wrestling. Like I quit watching it around 7 or 8, and I got back into it when I was 12 to 13. And I remember seeing Diesel for the first time, and I'm like, wow. The guy just looked like a giant. But then I saw 1, 2, 3 Kid and guys smaller like that, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, and I was like, I could do this. I don't know why that popped in my head because I was always a totally unathletic kid. When I go throw a baseball, it lands behind me. But I just thought, if these guys can do it, I can do it. And I didn't realize that you could train to do it until I was about 17. I was flipping through the channels, and I ran across indie wrestling. Up to that point, I didn't know there was indie wrestling. And it was there was an advertisement during the show. It was some local show like Motor City Wrestling. And they would just highlight different indies throughout the Detroit area. And the commercial was for Can-Am Wrestling School, which at the time was ran by, still is, Scott D'Amore. But the trainers back then was the Canadian Destroyer, which is who Petey Williams named his move after, and Irish Mickey Doyle. So I saw that. I called the next day, and I made a appointment to do a tryout 2 weeks later, and then that was it. So around 17, the summer of my junior year.
Well, that's awesome. Now, I know that Nate Mattson was trained by Mickey Doyle also. Did he do any training with you?
He came in a few times during a few of the practices, but he was in the class a year before mine. So when I started, he had almost a year worth of experience because he's one of those guys that picked it up really quick. I think within a few months he had his first match. I don't know. He might have told you guys, but I know it was fast from everything I heard. Everyone just saw him as the next up and coming. He was good right off the bat. You could see it. So he came in a few times and would help out with practice, kind of beat up the green kids. So it was actually, once I started having matches, I was on the other end of the spectrum. It took me 9-10 months to have my first match. and that was like a 3-on-1 squash, get me beat up by a guy calling himself Judge Dredd. So, after that, and I started traveling around helping out with the ring crew and paying my dues. That's when I ran across Nate, and he was really cool to me. And there's a lot of guys that were just really good to helping out when I first started. A guy, I think Movado talked about him, Denny Cass. He helped out a lot when I first started. He was one of my first matches.
All right, well, this is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We are talking with Caleb Stills. I'm going to pass it over to Sign Guy. Sign Guy, what do you have for Caleb?
Well, thank you for joining us here on the Undisputed Wrestling Show. You told Zane that you got hooked on the Honky Tonk Man initially. I know that he wrestles all over the United States still to this day. Have you ran into the Honky Tonk Man very much in your career?
Earlier in my career, yes. There was a promotion that I started out with, NWA Michigan, and they used to bring him in quite a bit. Guys like him and Tommy Rich, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, a lot of the guys from the 80s, they were bringing in quite a bit. So I got to meet him on a few occasions. Never got to work with him, but it was always a trip, just listening to his stories. The guy definitely lived his gimmick. That was who he was, minus the jumpsuit, of course.
Now, when you're sharing a locker room, especially early in your career, with someone that you got hooked on by watching when you were very young, what's going through your head, and did it sort of change how you viewed working with big names on shows?
Over the years, I would say it did change, but those first couple of times, you're just in awe. You regress back to being 7, 8 years old as a kid, as a fan, and just like, wow. But you get over that after a few years of being on shows with guys like that quite a bit, and actually getting in the ring with them. It's just a wealth of knowledge, but you realize they're just a person. I mean, a very, very charismatic, outlandish person, but a person nonetheless.
And your career so far, I know that you probably have come across several different stipulation matches that you've been involved with over the years. What's been some of the crazier stipulation matches that you've had to take part in?
Number one on the list would be a casket match. About 10 years ago, I actually did a casket match in a little town that's east of Cleveland, Ohio, called Painesville. And it was with that I was feuding with Gangrel for about 4 months, and we ended it with a casket match, which I actually separated my shoulder, taking his Impaler DDT off the apron through the casket.
Ooh.
So, yeah, casket match is number one. I've been in quite a few tables and chairs matches, TLCs. The one I liked the least was I did a dog collar match once and got busted open the hard way. And it was just, those matches take a toll on your body over the years.
You mentioned the shoulder as a pretty big injury from Gangrel. What are some of the other injuries that you've had to deal with since you've been in wrestling?
Cracked sternum, torn both rotator cuffs, dislocated my right shoulder. I've had busted ribs. The biggest injury, the only one I actually needed surgery for, I broke my right ankle. And again, against a former name, it was Rock and Roll Express, and it was in an ice arena up in Flint, Michigan on a show, and I was tagging with this guy that was from Mexico, El Fuego, and I took a double backdrop, which they asked me back, hey, kid, can you land on your feet? I go, sure, no problem. And I landed on my right foot only, and it destroyed both bones, the tibia and the fibula. I had to have it rebuilt. So there's a rod, a plate, a few screws and pins in there.
Is that just the default answer? Yeah, I can do that, no matter what anybody asks.
Maybe 10 years ago. We'll go back to that 10-year rule. Maybe then, maybe even 5. Now, no. No, I know my limitations. You know, everybody should know. I mean, when you first start out and you're young, you're going to have that, you know, that devil may care attitude. You're going to be like, I'll bounce back. I'm rubber, right? It doesn't work that way. So once you've had enough of them, then that's when you slow it down. And you're like, all right, I can do this. I can't do that. There's no way in hell I'm doing that. And you just go from there.
When you look at the young kids coming into the business now, do you still see a lot of that where they will do basically anything anybody asks them to do, or do you see kids today thinking things through a little bit more before attempting something like a career-ending potential move?
I would like to say that they've learned, but I think that's just a rite of passage for everyone, man. I think when you come in, you're just full of energy and all this hope, and you just want to impress. Because what they say now, it's the impress me era. Like, everyone's going out there trying to top the last guy. Every match is trying to tear it up and steal the show. And that's just the mentality nowadays. So, yeah, I would want to say it changed, but I don't think so. I think everybody learns at their own pace how to slow it down and how to take care of themselves out there and not take every high risk that they can. But overall, I think everyone's going to go through it until you get that first, concussion.
You really think the first one stops people?
Maybe I'm giving a little too much credit. But it got to be by the half dozen, right? Six is the number.
Sometimes more.
Sometimes more.
Speaking of the younger wrestlers, I've seen shows where some of the young guys go out and they try to do every single move that they know, and they'll be in the first match or maybe the second match.
Yep.
37 kickouts after every finisher they've ever seen on TV. They don't seem to grasp a lot of times how to place matches to build the show to the main event. In your area, are you seeing a lot of that, or are you seeing guys that kind of understand when to have that type of match and when to slow it down a little bit?
I would say I've seen both. It depends on the locker room. There are some locker rooms around here, and I wrestle in a few different states like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, up in Ontario, and there's a couple promotions where the locker room knows and everybody works as a team, because it's not just psychology of a match, it's psychology of the show. Like you said, every match is supposed to build to that main event. That's the top. So if you're topping them, if you're doing all these kickouts and you're dropping everyone on their brains, every match, every move, where are you going to go from there? The crowd by intermission is just tired. It's not that they don't care. They're just too tired to even get into it. And you never want that. In my opinion, you call me a curmudgeon, but I believe you should always leave them wanting more. Always just give them just enough to want them to come back again. And that's not saying don't go out there and kill it. It's just saying don't kill yourself and don't kill the show, don't kill the moves. Respect it.
A lot of times on shows that I've seen also, there's a lot of the name wrestlers that come in and they try to rely on their name. They don't really plan to come back, so they don't plan to do very much in the ring. They might never leave their feet. They may barely do their signature moves. When you have names coming in like that, does that bother you when they showed that little regard for the people that have to come back the following show and try to work off of what they have done?
I mean, on one hand, I respect what they've done and everything. It's like they've laid the ground base, the pavement for all of us coming up. They built the foundation. But on the other hand, I don't think they should go out there and disrespect the business and their name. They're just tearing down everything they built when they go out there and they just phone it in. But on the other hand, also, I've seen guys that still go out there and they bust their ass and they're trying to put on a good show because they were a fan once and they want all these fans to get their money's worth. I will name drop the last week for Blue Water Championship Wrestling in Port Huron. They brought in Chris Masters, and he was nothing but a pleasure. He's nice to everybody coming in. He went out there. He worked hard. He's willing to leave his seat. He was willing to make the guy look better than he should have, and he interacted with the crowd. He did a meet and greet after the show, and then he left. I mean, he did everything you need from a name and more. And you could tell there was people that actually did pay just to see him.
Did you challenge him to a game of NBA 2K17?
I did not. I used to be a gamer nerd when I was younger, but I haven't touched the system in, I would say, 3 or 4 years.
When we had him on here, at one point he was a little distracted, and I asked him, "Are you playing NBA 2K with Carlito?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah," because Carlito had said that he was playing against him on a different interview. So that's why I brought that up.
That's
sorry,
awesome.
That's twice I've interrupted you, sign guy. I'm sorry
about that. Not a problem.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I could see that. Well, that's what the generation is now, right? It used to be you hear all these old timers talk about stories on the road, going to drink and pick up chicks after the shows. Nowadays, all the guys are going back to their hotel room and playing video games.
That's true. One of the things that used to go on a lot in wrestling locker rooms, and this is going back probably over 20 years ago. I don't know if anyone still does this anymore, but do you ever see cribbage being played?
I have never seen that. That would be a little before my time.
All right.
I'm starting to get up there, but I'm not that old. No, I've seen, when I first started, some of the older guys were playing like poker, but that was maybe my first year in the business. By the second year, those guys are out. Most of them were having families by then, so everyone's leaving the show right after they get paid, if they get paid, and taking off.
Well, speaking of that, everyone in the business has gotten interesting payoffs before. Sometimes promoters use very inventive ways to try to satisfy people getting their payday. What's been the most intriguing thing you were offered as pay for a match?
Well, there's always that go-to, like a hot dog and a handshake, right? But I've been paid in like pop and nachos when I first started. I've gotten, once I actually started getting paydays, I got paid with a third-party check. I don't know how that, it did cash. I don't know how it cashed. But yeah, a lot. But the worst is an IOU, a handshake saying, "Hey, I'll get you next time." I always hate that. It's like, if you don't plan on paying, just say, "I'm sorry, the crowd's light. We can't take care of you this show. Maybe we can do something next show." They'll be like, "I'll take care of you next show," and then the next show, all of a sudden, they have amnesia. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, the selective show memory.
Oh yeah, selective memory. Period. But yeah, the third-party check is the one that pops out in my head. I have been paid with like wrinkled up handful of ones, so to make it look like it was more. And this was within my first couple of years in the business. It was 5 wrinkled ones that the guy crumbled up, had shoved in his sweaty sweatpants, pulls it out. "Here you go, kid." Drops it in my hand and walks away. And I just stuff it in my pocket because it's bad etiquette to look at your pay in front of people. So I go back to the bathroom and I look in and it was like 5 ones. I was like, this isn't even enough gas to get home. That's another thing. How many shows that when you're first starting out, do you have just enough gas to get home? And you have to, like, every bit you have. So you plan on not getting paid. So you just got to make sure you have enough money at your house to take with you just to fill up your tank on the way home.
On the same vein, I'm sure there's been times where you were surprised by how well you were taken care of on a show. What was the first time like when you were pleasantly surprised at the pay?
The first time I was pleasantly surprised was on a show in an ice arena up in Bay City, Michigan. The guy that we ran, it was NWA Michigan, the first promotion I ever worked for. And normally he's known for paying $20, $25, $30 tops, no matter what the crowd draws. Well, we had at least 7, if not 800 people there. And he gave me and another guy a solid, like 3 times what we normally get. And we just thought we were rich. We thought we were rich. Yeah, we definitely went out and like blew most of it that night.
Well, at this point, I'm going to pass things back over to the bearded wonder, Zane Peasley. So thank you very much for joining us here on the Undisputed Wrestling Show.
No problem. You're welcome.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We've got Detroit independent wrestler Caleb Stills.
I am not Nate Matson. That is an insult.
I'm sorry about that.
That hurts me in the subcockles of my heart. No, Nate's a buddy, but yeah, that is not me.
So Caleb, been wrestling 18 years now?
18 years. Started in '98.
What does new tradition mean to you then?
New tradition. Everybody talks about old school wrestling, like the NWA, the AWA, Smoky Mountain after that, and just that style. But everyone looked at old school wrestling as a slow, methodical, not very exciting style of wrestling where everything's like strikes or mat based. And my way of was like a nod of the hat to that, but to bring some new school into it. So like some dynamic moves and some cool spots where there's some sweet reversals mixed in with those old school holds and just the way of selling and making the moves mean more than what they are.
Well, I think that's a good philosophy. Now, I know that you recently had a match, a 4-way match with Mance Warner. Would you say that he is a new traditionalist?
I would say he is. Yeah, I would definitely say he is. Right after my own heart. That guy, he's like he's the veteran rookie, is what I'd call him.
That's
he's only been a year in, but he has that swagger and that mentality that he's been around like 25 years, and that these young punks got to pay their dues. I really like his character.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Now tell us about XICW Proving Ground, because you are obviously one of the vets there. Tell us about that system and how you're teaching these rookies.
Oh yeah, Proving Ground Season 2, by the way. And we just had the first show this past Sunday, and the team was eliminated. Team Dickie Bronson. So I am the final 7, if you want to call it the finals. Proving Grounds is a very interactive fan type of show. What they're trying to do is they're not all rookies, even though they're saying it's veterans and rookies. Some of the rookies have been around 6-7 years, but they're new to the Detroit area. And they're trying to get into XICW because it's the best drawing show and actually one of the most entertaining shows in Michigan. So when we have our bigger shows every 3 months, the best in Detroit, it is legit the best in Detroit. And what Proving Grounds is a chance for these guys coming in and trying to get a spot to establish themselves and show what they're capable of. And they put them with the veterans, guys like me, Orlando Christopher, Amazing Nate was in the first season, Gavin Quinn, who's Alpha cover himself, but these guys got so much knowledge that they can pass on to the young guys. What I'm trying to do with my rookie, which is he's been around over 6 years, he's from California, El Ridiculoso. It's like a goofy luchador, but it's super entertaining. His eye holes on his mask are martini glasses, and there's fur on his mask. Yeah. So I definitely recommend you guys look him up. But what I'm trying to do with this guy is I'm trying to get him to focus more, because he's more of a spaz than he needs to be. He's entertaining when you slow him down and get him focused on what he's doing. So that's what I'm trying to pass. I'm trying to pass the whole knowledge, not saying go at a snail's pace, but slow it down. Show the crowd what you're doing. Because if they don't see it, you did it for nothing, right? So it's trying to showcase every little thing you have and make it larger. Make it expand, so everyone from the front row to the last row in the building can see what you're doing.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So other than XICW Proving Ground Season 2, what else you got coming up?
What do I have coming up? Well, this weekend I have my debut for White River Wrestling in Indiana, Carmel, I think it is, Carmel, Indiana. Yeah, I'm debuting there against Ace Perry, who I've heard a lot about. I've been on shows with him, but I really haven't got a chance to sit down and watch one of his matches. So I have that this Friday. I'm looking forward to that. Saturday, I'm in Metro Pro Wrestling, which is out of Wyandotte, Michigan, which is just south, like 30 miles south of Detroit.
Well, actually, I'm actually going to be the ring announcer at White River Wrestling on this Friday.
Oh, so you're saying you're going to make me look good? You're going to make me look good. That's what you're going to do, Zane.
I'm saying that you already owe me a smack or something for calling you Nate Madsen on the show. But if I call you that in front of the crowd in Carmel, Indiana, then I don't even know what you're going to have to do to me.
Well, my finisher is a pile driver, so just keep that in mind before you say something wrong. Well, so I would say speak before you talk, or think before you speak. Sorry.
Yes. Well, I will have a card in front of me at that time. But Ace Perry...
how about I write the card for you, then I hand it to you right before you go out there, so you can be as surprised as everyone else.
Ace Perry's a phenomenal young guy, trained by Billy Rock. You'll be really impressed with him.
I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully so is the rest of the crowd.
Yeah, and this will be a new venue for them. It's at a church. It's
I didn't know that. It's at a church.
Yeah.
I hope I don't light into flames walking through the archway.
I think we'll have fire extinguishers available just in case.
Please, on the ready, at least 2.
So Friday, Carmel, Indiana for White River.
Yep.
Saturday is Metro Pro. I'm sorry I keep interrupting you.
Oh, no, you're fine. I might be a little too eager to speak. That's all it is. But all I was going to say after that is October 8th is, speaking of XICW, Best in Detroit. They have Billy Gunn on the show. It was supposed to be Adam Rose, but I believe they had to replace him. He had to pull off. I'm trying to remember who they replaced him with.
Carlito?
It is Carlito. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My brain was skipping a beat there. But, yeah, on that show, I'm not sure who my opponent is yet. It might be an open challenge, but I will be there competing. And that's a show that you guys definitely need to make a trip to Detroit for. I'm telling you. You will not be let down.
That's at the Imperial House in Clinton Township, Michigan on October 8th. It looks like an amazing event.
Yeah, it will be. If you haven't seen some of these guys before, Gavin Quinn, Orlando Christopher, Jake Something, who was trained at Ring of Honor School by Delirious, these guys are amazing. They are the next guys that you're going to see on NXT, so why not come see them now, you know?
That's right. So, Caleb, tell all of our listeners how they can follow you on social media, at Facebook at Caleb Stills, CALEB STILLS. On Twitter, you're at Caleb Stills. Do you do Instagram, anything else like that?
No, that's a little too fancy technology for me. Twitter and Facebook's enough to keep me busy, and I update Facebook more than Twitter, but I'm trying to get better about that. That's about as much social media presence as I'm going to have. So Instagram, and I don't even know what else there is. That's a little too much for me.
Awesome. Well, is there anything that you'd like to say to your fans listening to the show tonight?
Check out my YouTube page. Search me out. Caleb Stills. There's quite a few matches on there. Even a match of me beating up Scott Hall's son, Cody Hall. I would say you should check out that match. It's kind of fun to watch him throw me around until I end his night. A little abrupt. Other than that, keep following me on Facebook and Twitter. Come check out a show, and you will. I'm going to steal a line from Nate. You will be amazed.
All right. Thank you, Caleb Stills, for being on the show
tonight.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you in Carmel for White River Wrestling on Friday night.
All right.
And,
slap you there.
Excellent stuff coming out of XICW, and we appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Well, Zane, are you going to announce Ace Perry's opponent in Carmel as Nate Matson? That's what the world is wanting to know.
I hope not. This would be my debut for White River Wrestling, so I hope that I don't offend Mr. Stills, and I hope that I get invited back sometime.
Oh, just as a trivia note, I once went to the hospital with Ace Perry's autograph on my chest.
Well, of course you did.
Yeah, it was one of my prouder moments.
Of course. All right. Well, I had mentioned White River Wrestling in Carmel, Indiana. That is at Mercy Road Church on 116th Street. It'll be their debut there. Should be an awesome show. Jake Oman is running that show, and he is their champion there. Jake was just on Monday Night Raw last night. He was one of the security guys trying to hold back Seth Rollins during the main event. So look for Jake Oman if you DVR'd Raw, and come out and see him on Friday night. Should be a great show. On Saturday night, I will be at Intense Championship Wrestling in Marion, Indiana. The Prophet will be there, so it should be a lot of fun. What do you got coming up, Sign Guy?
I'm taking a week off. I just this past Saturday I went to Northwest Pro as they did their Best in the Northwest tournament. Haven't gone to a lot of Northwest Pro shows, but it was a nice time and a really good venue. Sunday I was at NWA Blue Collar, and I counted some pinfalls, checked for a few submissions, and it was the debut of Jimmy Flame. Ow! So that was a long day there. Just a lot of pressure to make sure I didn't screw up Jimmy Flame's debut. So I'm taking a week off. And NWA Blue Collar, of course, will be there every Sunday at the North Portland Eagles, so definitely go check them out. I believe that might be all in the Northwest for this particular week, even.
All right. Anybody coming up on Fun Guy Wrestling Show?
Yes. Coming Friday, we have the referee out of Utah, someone I've worked a few shows with, Matt Man, on the show. His first solo time on the show.
Awesome. Killer Kev, what's coming up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network?
Well, Wednesday night, it's Glove Up or Shut Up with Stevie J and Peter H, covering everything in the world of mixed martial arts. Thursday night, Stevie J will be back with Thursday Night AMP, joined by Abby Arthur and Jason. And for some reason, I could not think of his name, but, better known as the Great Sudoku. I went completely blank there. I totally apologize to you, Mr. Sudoku.
Okay, so I'm not the only one who messed up this episode.
I fucked up. Yes, indeed. So that means Sign Guy's gonna have to screw up somehow.
Well,
I'll try.
All right, you'll have to try hard, please. 'Cause otherwise you're gonna make us look bad. Otherwise we're not gonna get that deal with Destination America.
That's right. So, on Glove Up or Shut Up, are they gonna talk about Ryback talking with Bellator?
They may. I don't know what their schedule is, but, or what's on the agenda, but if it's related to mixed martial arts, they are most definitely going to cover it. Stevie J busts his ass covering MMA, not just on Angry Marks, but, a few other places as well every week, and Peter H is the inside guy in the radio, so always going to be a great show there. Thursday night AMP on Thursday night, we are going to cover all the latest news in professional wrestling. We'll probably have more breaking information on the ongoing situation with TNA. I believe we're going to have some discussion about Hart family comments, especially related to Seth Rollins and his injury on Monday night. We'll probably, they may end up previewing Bound for Glory themselves, or maybe not. And, of course, covering all the latest news out of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think Pro Wrestling Noah's got a show that's coming up as well, so they may preview that as well. And, of course, Jordan Garber's Corner every week, featuring the great Jordan Garber, which you can hear here on Angry Marks and several other fine broadcast and podcast networks throughout North America.
Now, do either of you guys follow New Japan very much?
I try to. I've not been able to follow since the Super J Cup.
How about you,
I try to a little bit, but not too deep into it.
I haven't done any research on this, but I just saw something that Captain New Japan joined the Bullet Club.
Yes, major heel turn.
So is the Bullet Club just jumping the shark now?
I think the Bullet Club Hunter gimmick had just kind of run its course, and what the company has kind of done over the last several months. I mean, Captain New Japan has possibly the worst winning streak of any wrestler, and over the last 6 months, they've paired him with Tiger Mask, and they've put him with I can't think of him now. I could see him. Former WCW luchador.
Super Crazy?
Not Super Crazy.
Psychosis?
No. He does a lot of the commentary for New Japan as well. Why is my brain failing me tonight? I need a reboot.
All right.
But I can't remember. They usually team him with some of the older baby faces, and they'll have Captain New Japan lose, and then the baby faces will be upset with them, and they'll turn her back on him. They might slap him around a little. So, not surprising that eventually he decided he had enough of that abuse, and he's actually joined Bullet Club now.
Well, that seems silly, but maybe it's going to be a good angle. I don't know without watching it.
I tell you, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Captain New Japan because, on the one hand, his wrestling just seems terrible at times. But it's just all booking, but you gotta have respect for a guy who goes out there and knows he's going to lose a match every night and he's not drawing the respect intentionally, not getting any respect from the fans. He has to portray that he's not getting any respect out of other baby faces. I mean, that is a tough gimmick to work, I'd think.
Yeah, okay. I'd mentioned that Jake Oman was on Raw last night. I also want to give a shout out to one of our other former guests, Brutalicious Nick Cutler. He was part of the tag team that got squashed by Cesaro and Sheamus. But he looked good in the defeat. Hairy chest and all, he looked great. And Miss Hana, who was recently on Sign Guy Wrestling Show, or Turnbuckle Turmoil, I've announced her for All-Star Pro Wrestling. She was under the name of Anna Fields last night, and she got some good offense in on Bayley, but Bayley pulled away with the victory at the end. So great seeing some people that I knew on WWE Raw last night out of Cincinnati. So I called Caleb Stills by the wrong name, and I just almost called Raw WCW. So with that, anybody else have anything else to add?
I'm looking forward to our interview next week with the great Casper. I mean Cheyenne. I had the wrong Wyoming town.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for screwing up. So now we've all got them in. All right. Anything else, Sign Guy?
I think that will do it.
Got anything else, producer Killer Kev?